It is back to school time for students, back to books for students across the country, not just elementary and secondary as we've been talking about this morning so much, but also, of course, colleges and universities. They are opening to a point over the next few weeks. And on campuses across the country, there are obvious concerns for safety and efforts to contain the spread of COVID-19 among young people as they head back to the classes and to their dorms.
Even though we have some private room and some kind of kitchen area, but we still need to share the oven and some kind of laundry room with other students. So that might be one of my concerns.
They're going to find lots of new rules in place, things like limited guest access, visitor access, masks, one student per dorm room or suite, no more sharing. That's a positive in all of this, I would say, having had the dorm experience. But as I said, this is a common concern at campuses across the country. We want to focus, though, for the next few minutes on what's happening in Halifax at Dalhousie. Ivan Joseph is with me this morning, the Vice Provost of Student Affairs at Dal from Halifax. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for being our guest.
My pleasure. Happy to be here.
Okay, the weekend. The students are arriving. It all begins. Before we talk about the changes you've made, what are you feeling with the stakes as high as they are and all of this about to begin?
You know, I think we're all excited for students to come on campus. Whenever they do come up and arrive, the energy comes up. We know it's going to be different, and so we're not going to have the same number, and so we're nervous. As well prepared as you are, you can never prepare for everything, and so you know we think we're ready, and we hope we're ready, and so we look forward to the year beginning.
What kind of numbers? You say there are not as many as before. What kind of numbers are you looking at this year?
Well, in a typical year, we'll have 4,000 students in our residence community on campus. And by de-densifying, we've only got about 700 students in our residence on campus this year. You know, Dal has the medical school and some very unique programs that need hands-on practicum learning. And so by the time we add up all our students, we're just a little bit over 2,000 students that will be taking classes. Normally that number is 20,000.
That's a big indication of how things are going to be different. You said at the outset that you think you're ready to go, given the changes that you've made. You have made some very sharp shifts in logistics and in protocols. Take us through some of the most significant ones.
Well, we've got a great team working here. We work with the ministry, we work with the public health officials, and we've put together a really strong and robust plan. For sure, you've heard about us now. There's no longer two people to a room. We've de-densified those rooms. We've got a mask policy in place. We've got no classes that are live. Everybody's going to be in Zoom. And if they do have to be live in certain places, such as our medical schools or our other practicum or physiotherapy, we're limiting the number of students that are in those classes at the same time, or we're moving them to bigger classrooms. So for example, if you have 20 students in a class, you're all of a sudden now going to be put into a 60-person classroom to make sure that we've got the proper ventilation, the proper social distancing, all those sorts of things.
So no classes, no in-person classes. If not, then why then are you opening the residence?
It's a good question. So one of the things you have to recognize is that there's lots of folks across this country that have limited access to the internet, to the technology, to the resources that are needed to be successful students. Some students are coming from places where their community is unsafe, where their home is unsafe. And Dal is a place where they feel like they matter and they belong and they can be connected and be successful. And we want to make sure that we continue to provide that opportunity for our students.
So you've had to go ahead with this for that reason and make these changes. It's not just changes in the classroom. I was mentioning visitors at the outset. What have you put in place for people to come and visit, the people at residence, and alcohol?
Well, one of the things you'll notice is when students come into residence, you know, and especially in Halifax, 50% of our university population comes from outside of the province. So if they come into the province, they have to self-isolate for 14 days. Just to make sure that they're good, that there's no issues. After those 14 days, they're free to roam around campus, to get involved in the community. But we're limiting guests in those 30 days, just to make sure, the first 30 days, just to make sure that we've got a safe practice, just in case anything may be missed, we can limit the spread of anything that might happen. Alcohol, we are going to, similar to most years where the first 2 weeks we have what we call a dry campus or a dry orientation. We're going to extend that time period from 14 days to the first 30 days, just to make sure, again, everything is smooth, there's no trouble, there's no issues, there's no challenges. We all believe in a safe and balanced approach to alcohol. Our students haven't abused that as in the past, and they will continue to be good citizens. And so those are the steps we're moving forward with.
All of that makes me wonder about campus life and what it's going to feel like, because as you know, I mean, the campus experience is more so, or certainly equally as important to many students as it is the educational component. How much do you think it's going to suffer because of these strict new rules?
It's a great question. I have 3 kids in university, and my son is on his way this year. And, he always reminds me, don't say it's going to be the same, Dad. And it's not going to be the same. It's going to be a different campus experience. I don't want anybody to not believe that. But what we are trying to do is make it as best as we can. We've created virtual programs such as Together at Dow. We've created online programs. And for those students who are in the community and on campus, we're still going to have student life activities and programs. But instead of the concert with 1,000 people, it will be a concert with 250. Instead of 1 movie night with the entire campus, it might be 5 movie nights showing the same movie night. So we're still going to reach out and make sure people have a way to connect and feel like they've met their friends, their best buddies, because that's a big part of the university experience. We're just going to make sure we do it in a controlled and safe environment. Our student government has bought a whole bunch of activities set aside just to do this very same thing.
Despite all of the plans and the changes, what if? What if there's a case or a bigger outbreak?
It's the fear that we all have, and here, especially reading in the news of what happened to the States. Dow, we've set aside 2 residences just to help in isolation. We've got a residence that can house 700 students that we can make sure they're socially distanced. We've got a protocol in place to deliver meals to make sure they get the treatment they need. And so we believe we're well prepared for this. Of course, you hope it doesn't happen, but you have to plan for the best, and I think we're well prepared for that.
But also prepare for the worst. You mentioned the American example. That was going to be my question to you. Obviously, you're keeping a very close eye on the U.S. example, which is different from that which you've laid out there. But a number of prime U.S. colleges have opened and have very quickly had to shut down because they've immediately had cases. What are you watching for as worst case scenario in terms of when you'd have to just stop things cold again?
Well, recognize that American experience is significantly different. They didn't have those same sort of de-densifying plans. They didn't have the same periods of self-isolation. So I just want your viewers and your listeners to recognize that they're apples and oranges. We will work with our public health officials. We will work with our team of doctors on campus to really help inform us of what that looks like when there's a threshold. There's not like, if we get 3, we're shutting down, or if we get 7. Again, our university is in partnership with both our city officials and our public health officials to make that decision.
It's a whole new world for you and officials on campuses right across the country. I thank you for laying out what's in store at Dal. And let's stay in touch, because I'm interested to know how it goes once the students do actually begin to arrive. We'll keep in contact, all right? Carry this on.
Thanks. Take care.
Really appreciate it. Ivan Joseph, the Vice Provost of Student Affairs at Dal.